Hey guys, it's Dalton with DK Strength here. Very excited to give you the newest installment of my YouTube channel. Hoping to continue working hard on it. And today's topic, shoulders. Hey guys, it's Dalton with DK Strength. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad to have you here. Today's topic is going to be about shoulders. Now, this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, as I've had 2 shoulder surgeries myself. You can probably even see a couple of the scars here on camera. Had 3 of the 4 rotator cuff muscles torn in my right shoulder, 2 of the 4 in my left, and then both labrum. So it was a pretty nasty injury from high school football. But one of the things that I think is underrated about injuries is that it does end up teaching us a lot. And for me, it was no different. So today I'm gonna kind of go over some of the things that I've enjoyed or things that I found some success with in keeping my shoulders relatively healthy post-athletic career and still allow me to continue doing what I want to do. So before we actually really dive into this topic though, I think it's very important to understand the anatomy of the joint. The reason being is that the shoulder joint is very complicated. It's not a knee or elbow joint where it bends in one direction. It's a ball and socket joint, as you probably know, that moves in all kinds of directions. Has several different muscle attachments such as your serratus, both your pec muscles, you got your deltoids obviously, rotator cuffs, and so much more. So let's dive into the anatomy of the shoulder here first. All right, guys. So the first thing that I wanted to show you was the overall anatomy and structure of the shoulder joint here. And the reason being is because I think a lot of form follows function, function follows form, whatever you want to argue. But I think that understanding the overall structure of the joint and what it looks like can give you a better understanding of how it's supposed to move, how it's built, and then how you can subsequently train that. So the first thing that I wanted to point out was just in really what I want you to take away, because I don't expect you to remember all of these muscles, tendons, bones, whatever, is that it's just a pretty complicated joint with a lot going on here. Obviously, we have your clavicle, what you might maybe know as your collarbone. We have your scapula, which you probably know a little bit better as your shoulder blade, your humerus here, which you might know a little bit better as your upper arm, which is obviously surrounded by a lot of different muscles. We have our rotator cuffs that sit above and below the scapula there. We obviously have our 2 bicep tendons that run up and attach to another bony process from the scapula here. We have our tricep tendons on the backside, which we obviously can't see from this angle, but they're obviously there and play an important factor. And again, these are all just things to kind of note in the back of your head. Don't expect you to remember all of these, as even sometimes I have trouble remembering all of them all the time and have to constantly do reviews on it. But just want you to know that this is a complicated joint with a lot going on. So obviously that probably means that our training isn't going to be as straightforward as a lot of people want you or lead you to believe. So the next thing that I wanted to point out was how this works into the larger picture of things, I guess, for lack of a better term. So this all constitutes at the joint, kind of where everything's centralized, but overall we look more at the shoulder girdle to assess movement and things along those lines. So when we take a look at these pictures here, we see that we have like our muscles, such as like our serratus muscles, that are going to attach up here on our upper ribs. So things such as your breathing and things along those lines are going to have an effect on your overall shoulder joint. So just because you're feeling pain in the shoulder doesn't necessarily mean that that's where the problem is. There, you can see that there's a lot of different things that run up and affect this joint, both on the front side over here and on the back side. You can see how, because these muscles run down from your neck, how having a tight neck, sleeping a bad night could have an effect on your shoulder stress. So just things that you maybe want to take into account, because when it comes to your training, maybe you have to take a little bit of an alternative approach. If you had an overhead pressing day, but you slept wrong that night, maybe you have to switch that movement up that day. I don't know if that's the right move for everybody, but again, just something that I wanted you to understand was it fits into a large picture here. Obviously, you see our things such as our lat muscles, rhomboids, things along those lines. So again, biggest things I wanted you to remember from this was just how complicated the joint is. We got a lot going on here, and this is going to be kind of the basis of our training and how we move. because this is a system that's supposed to be fairly fluid. The joints are supposed to glide over top of one another, such as the scapula is actually supposed to sit like on the back of your rib cage and be able to freely move. When we see a lot of shoulder dysfunction, we see that oftentimes, again, not for everybody, but oftentimes that shoulder blade gets locked down, and that could be a source of a lot of our issues. Again, just wanted you to point out it's complicated. There's no straightforward answers, no matter how much anybody wants to make you believe that. So just take everything with a grain of salt, even at the things that I give you today. Obviously, like I said in the intro there, my injuries are specific to me. I can't necessarily replicate them on you, especially through this online medium. So always consult with your professional, but remember that there's a lot of more going on than just the deltoid up here, which a lot of people want to think that as long as they're training their deltoids, they're fine. So hope you guys enjoyed this part of the video. Let's go into some exercises. Another thing I wanted to touch on before we jump into the next portion of the video is that in no way am I going to be able to cover the entire shoulder joint. This would literally be a 10-hour video if I tried to do that. And anybody on YouTube who claims that they have the one fix to your problems is probably lying to you for some views. So I just wanted to clear that up. Going forward, as I show you these exercises that I found successful, take that with a grain of salt. You always are going to want to talk with your therapist or your surgeon if you do have pre-existing issues, as every injury is going to be slightly different. Again, I had specifically labrum and rotator cuff issues, but somebody with, say, a shoulder impingement or shoulder separation might have much different issues than me. So take that with a grain of salt. But again, hope you guys enjoy these next moves that I found successful in keeping my shoulders healthy and feeling great. Alright guys, so the first exercises that we're starting out with are going to be some pretty passive stretching modalities. The first one is just going to be a PVC pipe stretch where you're using the bottom hand to drive the top hand into more extended ranges of motion. These are just some more day one type things you can do if your shoulders are very painful or you're straight out of surgery. Relatively safe and working on range of motion here. As we learned in the previous part of the video, we know that the bicep is attached around the shoulder joint there. One of the ways that we can avoid some bicep tendonitis and things along those lines is by stretching it out. Simply grab a table, a bench, or anything of similar height, lean forward, and stretch that bicep. If you know your stuff or you've been paying attention throughout the video, you maybe have seen that the latissimus dorsi, or the lat muscle as most people know it, is also attached at the shoulder junction. One of my favorite stretches is the PVC pipe stretch, where you simply grab the PVC pipe underhanded, hook your elbows on the bench, push your head through your arms, and sit back on your ankles while pulling away from the bench. This will fight the rounded shoulder syndrome and help you maintain a better posture. Don't worry too much about holding this for an extended amount of time. Simply rock in and out of it for reps, making sure that we're not causing any discomfort to the actual shoulder joint. As you can see, the PVC pipe is one of my favorite tools for shoulder mobility. You can pick one up at any of your local hardware stores as we move into the shoulder pass-throughs. Grab it like a barbell and move it over and in front of your head. Some pro tips is it will get easier as your hands move out on the PVC pipe and harder as they move in. And the biggest thing you always want to watch out for is that you're not hunching your shoulders as you move through this movement. Moving into the band pull-apart complex, we're going to start strengthening the shoulders. Beginning with standard band pull-aparts where you want to pull from 45 degrees up, down into your chest, overhead pull-aparts where we're going straight up, as well as into face pulls. A few key things to remember while performing these exercises is eyes straight forward, neutral neck, and always keeping an engaged core. These are great for strengthening any of those rear delt and back muscles, which will open up anybody with rounded shoulders. Weight or carry marches are a great way to activate the serratus muscle. Simply march in place, arms at 90 degrees, while being careful not to hike up that shoulder. Keeping with the idea of engaging the serratus muscle in a dynamic fashion, we have push-ups plus. Simply drop into a regular push-up while making a separate part of the movement pushing the ground away from you extra hard. While this is a big no-no when we go to bench press, this is a great way to dynamically engage that serratus muscle.
Moving into probably one of my overall favorite shoulder movements is the plate around the world. The reason why I like this movement so much is because it challenges the shoulders in a variety of directions and extreme ranges of motion. Definitely not a beginning exercise, but once you feel comfortable with the previous exercises, feel free to experiment with this one. Form over everything with these, doing these in a moderate to high rep range. You want to keep the ribs down and the head still.
Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed some of those movements that I found successful. Again, even if they just add a few more tools to your tool belt to help you live a longer and healthier life, that's perfectly fine with me. Again, these are all things that we need to take into context when we're thinking about what we are doing in our programs. Before I let you go though, I did want to address a few of the more common movements that people are gonna do. Although I don't always think optimal, I don't see people giving up these movements here in the near future. So I'm gonna go over some of the common mistakes that I see in some of the more common pressing movements and things along those lines, so that way you can watch out for your shoulders moving forward and hopefully continue doing the things that you love, such as bench press, overhead press, things like that with a barbell without an overly amount of pain.
One of the biggest mistakes I see with the bench press is having people's elbows flare out at a 90-degree angle. The correct angle should actually make an A from elbow to chin to elbow rather than a T, so always keep those lats engaged and spine stable. In the same vein, one of the biggest mistakes I see is watching people's shoulders come off the bench during a bench press. Not only does this take tension off the chest, but puts it directly on the shoulder joint. One of the things you should always remember is that just because it's an upper body movement doesn't mean that the rest of the body isn't involved. A big breath, squeezing your glutes, and keeping your feet firmly planted on the ground will always be advantageous. Although the mistakes are similar, the overhead press is a different beast. A couple of the things that I see from a lot of different commercial gyms is watching people lean too far back during a press, or even push their head too far forward during the press. A correct overhead press will finish in a top locked out position with your head and neck completely neutral. While a lot of these cues and mistakes are going to be the same amongst different pressing movements, one of the things that I want you to remember is that the shoulder is not separated from the entire body. Just because you are performing an upper body movement or an upper body workout day does not mean that the rest of the body should not be engaged. Always keep a straight core, neutral neck, and keep the hips engaged.
Alright, so there are some of the more common mistakes that I see in the gym. Hope that maybe provided a little bit more insight into some of the more common movements that you might see and how to maybe do them with a little bit more protection for the shoulders that can be a very durable joint but are a susceptible joint to injury. Again guys, thank you so much for coming to watch my video and all of my content. Your support means the absolute world to me. I hope that each week I can get a little bit better at this and provide even more value to you on a daily basis. But until then, thank you guys so much for the support. If you want to reach out, if you're interested in training or just even picking my brain about something, don't hesitate to reach out on any of my platforms. I have my website, dkstrength.com. You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at DaltonKats, K-A-T-S, for those that don't know me personally. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook at dkstrength or email me dalton@dkstrength.com. Again, I would want to meet all of you, talk with you, and see how much value I can provide you, as I'm always wanting to learn from others as well. Again, thank you guys so much, and hope you have a good rest of your day.